What's up, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Pit Therapy Podcast with me, Trevor, and Kyle, and Gabe from Darasuum. Thank you so much for jumping on with us. Really excited for this one. So, dude, how have you been?
Fantastic. Just trying to get the album in order, and in between all that, just trying to practice and get ready for these shows we got coming up with Notice the Victim.
That's incredible. Album in order. So, like, new music's on its way.
Yeah, we have a full length written. It's just we're trying to cut costs, and with that, we're just trying to do everything ourselves. Like our last EP, Thriving on the Divide, we only had help tracking the drums, and then we did everything else ourselves. And all we did was we just sent it all off to this dude Josh Knoll, who mixed and mastered it all, and he just killed it. He killed it. He exceeded our expectations of the sound, but it made us realize, we can actually do this ourselves. The editing the drums was the worst part of it. Apparently, I didn't do it. But, that was apparently the worst part of it. But it just made us realize we could do it ourselves, and so we're gonna do that route again. And hopefully we could just get that done. Within at least get in the studio by January, which I wanted to be in the studio 2 months ago. So
sure.
Yeah, it's just, we have kids and wives and families or whatever. So we're just busy, and, there's just always an obstacle, in the way, and that keeps us from being able to, finish everything up. But it works out in the end, because then we have new ideas, we hear things differently. And then we could just oh, you know what? Let's rewrite this because I hear this now, or we have one song where we just keep changing the end breakdown, because we just keep hearing maybe we could do this, maybe we could do that, so but we need that payoff, and we want to make sure that we really think it through, and sleeping on it for so long is giving us that time to kind of solidify what we really want for this album.
So that's awesome. And you actually led into 4 of the questions I've written up for you. So let's get going on this. So you're self-producing, right? But you guys are somehow partnered with New Age Records. So Is that just for releasing distribution? What is with New Age then?
So New Age, they want the full length. So when we had the EP written, I kind of told him we have these 3 songs, so we're gonna do a couple covers, but it's just to hold over, our audience right now, just to give them, everybody's so content, everybody wants content, content hungry, and with social media and all this crap, we suck at social media. I'm an old guy. I'm 39 years old. I come from the world of passing out CDs and flyers and stuff like that. So I'm, the whole social media thing is just out of my, realm, and I'm just learning as I go. But when we did the Thriving, it wasn't even going to be a release that we released. It was just going to be 3 songs we threw up on the internet, do a Disciple cover, a Hatebreed cover, and that was it, And then because I collect music, I was just I want to release it on physical format. And so I kind of hinted to New Age, hey, we got this release, it'd be kind of cool if you check prices on 7 inches or something. And he didn't really show interest in wanting this release, but he from the get-go wanted just the full length. And so I didn't really pressure him to put out this Thriving EP, but he just made it.
Is that pretty typical? If you listen to any of the last episodes we've done with other bands, I usually give them a ton of crap for EPs because I like music. I like you guys. And I was about to say something until you were yeah, it's a full length. So then all right, I won't make the rude comment again like I usually do. But is that a thing that record labels are bummed about right now? Because I feel like everyone is just putting out EPs. And I would assume a lot of that is because you can do more of it on your own now. You don't necessarily need them.
So I'm friends with other A&R dudes who work with I would say bigger labels. And I had this conversation when we played with Kubla Khan a few weeks ago, and I was hanging out with this dude Jordan who sings that band Momentum, and we were in a conversation with our friend Mike Gitter from he's an A&R dude at Central Media now, and Jordan brought that up because him and I were talking about this release for us, and he was like telling me the same thing, like, oh bro, like fuck the full length, you guys got to do EPs, nobody gives a fuck about these long format, and and I myself, like personally, I'm a very big, like, I'm the demo guy, I'm the EP guy. The full lengths are like, it's just too much,
Mm-hmm.
And even going in, kind of like circling back to the album real quick, with this album, the way we're trying to do it is trying to design it a way where it keeps the listener engaged. Like if you guys listen to Angry Brigade, it all plays straight through. Like there's no gaps or pauses other than Into the Proof. And so trying to do that now for 11 or 12 songs, it's like, how are we gonna make this work to keep the listener, like, they can't just take off the headphones and pause it right here, like we want to keep them listening. But so when we're writing like this, when Jordan was talking to Gitter about it, he asked Gitter, like, like, how do you feel about full lengths versus EPs and stuff? And his whole thing was just that you can't price an EP for $25. If you press it on vinyl or whatever, it's like, it won't sell. You can't do that. Even when we did our Angry Brigade on vinyl, it was just like, well, we've spent $20 pressing it per record,
right?
But we can't sell it for $20.
Yeah.
Like it's a $15 record, and so that's just what we did. We just we pressed it for ourselves, really, but we just kind of like, well, we'll just sell it for 18. I think we did for 18 or something like that with shipping. And we just ate whatever the cost. I mean, our credit cards got paid off or whatever from it, but we still won. But ultimately we didn't make any money from it other than just paying off the credit cards. But that's basically the whole idea of EP versus full length, is that you can't price an EP for $25. You can only really do that for a full length, where the buyer feels like, oh yeah, 25 for 11 songs, I'll do it. But the 11 songs is only going to be like 14 minutes, So.
Yeah.
Listen,
minute
man,
and a half songs, right?
whatever you have to do, right? So so I think we're just a little bit younger than you. I'm 33, Kyle just turned 34 kind of thing. So we were right at the end of physical media. Like everything was still physical while we were coming up. So where you were saying, like, you want the listening experience where it's like, there's no gaps, it just goes straight through. I was driving home from a show on Friday night and I turned on Set Your Goals, the Mutiny album. And I love that. It goes straight through. Every song bleeds into each other. There's like one space. Like that is like my jam. I love when you can do things along those lines. And so this was a conversation I don't remember who I was talking to. You know what? It might have actually been Brandon Heatley from Slumped. And he was talking about exactly what you're saying, adding the production value, the storytelling, just like everything bleeds together and stuff. And then being able to take that from the album and put it into the live setting. And that stuff it's just incredible.
Well, yeah.
So I'm even really excited for that.
Yeah. Even when we play live, we don't stop. Like I have nothing to say. I have nothing. I'm not trying to sell you on anything. I'm not going to sit and beg you to buy our merch. Go look at the merch table. I'm not trying to sell you anything. All I want is for our music to do the talking, and in between like feedbacks or whatever between songs, like I'll yell like whoever we're playing with. Like if we're, with a bunch of friends, I'll be like, oh, for whoever, and that's about it. But I'm not trying to like sell anybody anything. If people, I'm of the mindset of if people want it, they'll buy it. I'm not trying to sell you guys anything. If you fuck with me, I fuck with you, and that's it. We're just gonna get up here, do our thing, and we're out of here.
Yeah,
that's incredible.
I will say though, it's funny going back, kind of on the physical medium stuff. Like you brought up vinyls. Like I recently just got like into vinyls. I guess I guess it's been a little more than a year. But some of the vinyls I got, like I bought the reissue of Artist in the Ambulance by Thrice. And I sat my son down and I was like, we're going to listen to this front to back. Right. And like, I don't know. I feel like some of that part of the art, like the art the artistry in this stuff is kind of lost. And to be able to sit there and have this moment with my kid where I'm like spinning a disc and looking through the lyrics and stuff with them and talking about it, like I miss that. We talked to another band that was printing off physical tickets again for shows. And it's like, maybe it's just me getting old, but I kind of miss that. And so to hear you say stuff like, we're, asking about physical medium again, like like we're excited for that. It's an old man take, but like, I think the scene needs that again. I think we need the artistry and the actual tangible things in it again,
Yeah. And just the simple art of discovering a band is out the window. It's before you could, at least with me and like my brother and stuff, it's like we would have to like go find we had Scratch Magazine or Mean Street, Maximum Rock and Roll. There was a local record store here called X Records that used to put out their own zine also. And that's like what we, other than like thanks list and stuff, we would go through those, look at the for fans of, or if they thanked whoever, and it's like, oh, like this band sounds pretty cool, like I'll check that out, or whatever. And my dad would take us to like Virgin Records or something. He'd buy us one CD. We could have one CD or a T-shirt every other week because that's when he got paid. And that's what he would buy us. You guys want to go to a show and get a T-shirt? You get a T-shirt, or you could get a CD from the store. And so we would just keep these bands in mind and be like, oh, like, this was, in Hate Breeds Thanks list, and it'd be like a Vision Disorder or something. Yeah. And so now you have Bandcamp, you have Spotify, Apple Music. It is just, music, vomit. It's just so much, and there's no, me now, like I kind of gave up on all the band camps. Like I just rather go to a show and discover the bands the way I used to discover them. I like to tell people about Martyr AD. When Martyr AD first came out to California, they came out on like with the like Brothers Keeper, Throwdown, 18 Visions or something, and all that was on the flyer is this ex-members of Disembodied. And all we knew was like, whoa, crap, like we got to see what Martyr sounds like.
Yeah.
And once they started, man, it was just like the panic chords right away. And it's just like, it just blows your mind. And then that's just kind of like what I get off on when I discover a band. Like I just refuse now to really check out a band unless I see them live first, and then I'll carry it over onto like the band camps or whatever,
Sure.
But I feel like that whole thing is just lost in today's, music climate. Everyone just, oh, I'll check them out on Bandcamp. They don't sound like Tsunami. I'm not gonna mess up. I'm not gonna go see them, or whatever. It's like people. I'm a fan of music. I freaking love music. I love seeing bands, and I will, argue with my wife. Like, how are you not gonna let me go? It's 9 o'clock. Like, I don't want to sit and watch TV. If I gotta watch one band, I want to go see that one band. Like, I don't care if I'm missing the entire show just to go see one band. Like, I just want to go. And, I feel like a lot of bands, even today, like a lot of the local bands, they forget that, like there's a lot of people just forget being a fan of music. They get in these bands, become cool guys, and, like, oh, I don't got to, care anymore. I don't got to support. I don't got to put in the work or whatever, they just like, they become too cool to even be a fan of music, and I'm the opposite. I don't believe every band freaking sucks. I think bands just are figuring it out. They're dialing in their sound. They're learning as they go. I don't think bands suck. I just think they're all learning, and they will get there, just like we all did when we first started bands. Like my very first band, Bound in Blood, terrible. Like I think it's terrible. But there's kids out here that are like still like ask me like, oh, when are we gonna do Bound in Blood show or whatever, and I'm just a fan of music, and especially discovering a band that just gives me goosebumps or, whatever. It's just like, they're out there, but you're not going to find it sitting on Bandcamps or Apple Music, listening to a song. You got to get out there and see it physically and take it all in. And that's when you become like a fan of them, or just like, it's not for me,
You
But
know,
Yeah.
I
you know,
really
yeah.
appreciate you saying all of that because this year has been huge for me as it relates to all of that. I got lost in the everything was so accessible online for a long time, right? If I listened to them online and I didn't like them, I was like, I don't care. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
It is so much changed since I go to a show at least once a week, typically, a little bit more kind of thing. There's a couple breaks here and there, but I'm kind of the same way. Usually I'll at least throw the band on so I can hear them and see what they sound like just to know what I'm getting myself into, but then I don't go in with any expectations. I can't tell
Mhm.
you how many bands I would go back and see live, but I won't put their albums on in the car. You know what I mean? Like, it's such a different visceral experience, just like the way that they do their breakdowns, the way they interact with the crowd. Like, there's been bands who have moshed with us. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
I'm like, I will support you because of that. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, that's the kind of stuff that I'm just like thriving on, especially this year. It's been incredible. So I'm right with you. Go to live
Yeah.
music. That's the
Yeah.
big takeaway.
There's so many good bands right now. You know, it's like almost every show I go to, it's just there's like a band that's just like, dang, like, you know, like I'm surprised. You know, like there's these kids today just have like good gateway bands. You know, that
Mhm.
like they could just get up and running, and you know, it's just like they just got a good ear for like we want to do this and we're gonna nail it, you know. Whereas like again, like my inspiration with Bound and Blow was like Shattered Realm, you know. It was like very
Yeah.
basic like breakdowns and whatever, like very like cheesy almost breakdowns and stuff. Whereas like now it's like these kids are just like breakdowns coming out of nowhere and like very creative, you know. And you got bands like, you know, like Smoke 909 or Big Ass Truck where like they're just making it fun and
Yeah.
you know, almost like kind of gimmicky, but like the music is like perfect. Like
Yeah.
it's not like man, like I can't think of like a good gimmick band like Guar, right? Like Guar, like the
Yeah.
costumes. Guar, you think like they're gonna be like this like crazy metal band, and then you go see them, they're kind of like more like a hard, like they're like a metal band, but like very rocky, more like rock than metal, I guess. You know, here and there, I guess. I do like some Guar, but like to me, like their image never really matched the music. Or it's like Ghost. Ghost is even a better example.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm.
like you see them, you're like, oh crap, like black metal. Then he plays, and you're like, wait, it's like 80s, you know, prog rock
Yeah.
type stuff. But like, you know, but yeah, I just think like a lot of the musicianship right now with a lot of these bands is just incredible, and I can't, you know, just I can't say a band sucks anymore. It's just
Right.
like just bands are just figuring it out, and they're gonna get it, and you know, surpass. Dude, okay, I used to see Avenged Sevenfold, right, to like
Yeah.
15 people. I would see them to like 15 people, and I thought they were the worst band. Them and Atreyu. Like I thought they were the worst bands that would be playing with like, you know, every band. You know, I would see like Avenged Sevenfold with like Bleeding Through, like Hope Conspiracy, and Atreyu with like Bane or something.
Yeah.
And I would just be like, why? Like these bands suck. And look where they're at, you know? So it's like I'm the last person that should think any band sucks, because the bands I think suck are freaking selling albums like crazy, you know?
Yeah.
So
It's true. But what you were just saying kind of about like the gimmick stuff. So like
mhm.
it is funny, like growing up, my gimmick band that like I can remember off like the top of my head is Psycho Stick. You know what I
Okay.
mean? What was that song? Kyle,
Is
beer
the
is
beer
good or
is good?
something?
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And they were like the gimmick band. Like the music was fine, but it was just silly, stupid lyrics and stuff like that. Looking at like Big Ass Truck today. Now, the gimmick is everything they're doing is a big ass truck. You know what I mean? They're writing
Yeah.
songs about the engines, the motors, all that kind of stuff. Like it's silly, but what you're saying is absolutely true. Big ass truck is sick. They're
Yeah.
heavy. It's fun. It's aggressive. The shows look great. You
Shows
know
are
what I
Yeah.
wild.
mean? Like it's
And they
awesome.
are.
So
Yeah. They're a fun band. The dudes themselves, you know, are fun dudes. Like they're not like they're not serious themselves, you know, so it carries into their music, you know, that like they would just be a fun band. You know, they're just funny guys in general. They like joking and, you know, pranking and
yeah.
whatever, you know, with each other. You know, they don't like really like prank with me, because they're like I'm like uncle to them or whatever, you know, Grandpa Gabe or Unc or whatever they want to what do the kids call me? But yeah, they're just fun dudes doing fun bands. And Smoke 909 is the same thing. It's like they're just great people. Like I can't say enough good things about those guys, and I'm happy to be in this circle with them. So IE things. So
that's awesome. Dude, the IE's popping right now.
It is. It
seems
really
like you guys have a really cool scene out there.
Yeah, and we had it rough for a long time. After Showcase closed down, it was just like, where do we go from here? And it was just back to, backyards, or for a minute there was like a barber shop. It's just random places, garages. There was just nowhere to play in the IE, and now it's we still don't have a venue, at least an all ages one, but there's more places that are allowing shows, and the one venue we do have is the Haven, and it's not technically IE, but LA County likes to say it's IE enough, so yeah.
No, I
so
got
let's I guess shift gears, the big ass truck pun, but we'll shift gears a little bit. And so how did you, like, you brought up that your dad used to like take you to shows or CD stores or record stores or whatever.
Yeah.
So like, was it pretty easy to get into this music? Like, what's your background with music?
Everything. I mean, from birth, basically. My dad is a lifelong metalhead. Like, I mean, so my cousin, he plays in a band that's on Metal Blade Records called Armored Saint, and I want to say they were the second band to be signed to Metal Blade Records.
Cool.
But my dad and my uncle used to always go to concerts together. My dad will tell you stories when he was in the army. He was seeing like Bon Scott, Arab, AC/DC in Germany, and like Scorpions and all that stuff. And then he come back home and he saw Grateful Dead one time, and my uncle watched one song where they're like, this doesn't look like the artwork, like we're out of here, they just took off. But yeah, my dad the only time my dad really calls me now is just to be like, oh, I picked up this DVD, or I picked up this CD and I have this coming in. And he texted me the other day a Dio DVD that he got. He's like, I love this, you got to watch this. So my dad's still a very big, not only supporter of like mine and my brother's like music endeavors, but he's a giant music fan himself, a very big music collector. But when he was already into heavy metal, but when my cousin started doing Armored Saint, my dad was at all those backyard or backstage shows like Morbid Angel and like all this crap. So we were raised heavily on Headbangers Ball. I mean, I have pictures of me like 4 or 5 years old, watching Headbangers Ball on TV. And, that's just my roots is heavy metal. And all I've known is music, watching concerts and all this stuff. And my dad took me to my first concert when I was 9 years old. And it was Slayer, Machine Head, and Biohazard in 95, January of 95. And then my second concert was Ted Nugent, Bad Company. And then like from there it was like Poison, Faster Pussycat, Rat.
Jeez.
And then my cousin got my brother into I have an older brother, and that's kind of like where the punk stuff comes in. But my cousin was the one that gave my brother like a cassette of like Screeching Weasel, Blink-182, and like Donuts and Glory, and like more like melodic skate punk bands. And then my brother kind of like fell into the whole thing. And then my brother was like, oh, I'm going to go to a show at this place we have out here in Riverside called The Barn, which is at the UCR campus. And my brother went to see, I think, the Bruce Lee band, Assorted Jelly Beans, maybe Voodoo Glow Skulls there, I forget. But my brother came home and was like telling my dad and us, me about it, like, yo, like, oh my God, like it was awesome, and no. And so my dad was just like, oh, well, we'll go, So I think the end of '96 we saw Aquabats, and that was my very first underground show. It was like those Aquabats, Joy Killer, Cherry Poppin' Daddies, and Meal Ticket. And
weird.
it was a free show. Aquabats were throwing, ham and food all into the venue, like mustard and, just crazy, and from there, it was just like every weekend we were going to shows. And then my dad was in the beer garden and met the promoter, which is this guy named Bill Fold, who now books the bands for Coachella. And he also managed Poison the Well for a bit and some other bands. But Bill was the one that told my dad, like, oh, you have kids. My dad's like, yeah. They're like, 10 and 12 or whatever. And he's like, well, anytime you want to go to a show, just come out. And that's when it snowballed. We were there, if not every day, we were there at least twice, or over the weekend for a weekend. It's just, we were just always there. I mean, we seen every band. I saw Static X play to like 15 people, Papa Roach opening for Alien Ant Farm and
Nice.
Amen, Drown. I don't know, man. I saw Incubus maybe like 7 times. And
jeez,
the room itself was maybe like a 400, maybe 500 cap room, and just seeing like all those bands, I seen like Earth Crisis there in 98. And before I was like a big hardcore kid, I was seeing all these bands, like Known as a Victim. I learned how to essentially, mosh from watching Known as a Victim shows. I saw them at the barn, and me and my friend Jonathan were like, look at these. Like, what are they doing? Like karate moves in there? And so the barn had like this whole other room, and him and I would just be like, we'd peek over and we'd see what they're doing. And I imagine the dudes who are moshing now, right? When I think all these years later, it has to be who are people. I guess you guys would know more for like Death Star, Sleeping Giant dudes, because their old band Consecrate played that show. But I imagine it was like mainly them, like probably the Engler brothers or something, like mosh for Known as a Victim. But me and my friend would peek over there and be like, oh, like I could do that, and like we would like go spin kick or windmill or something, But that was like, and mind you, I had already seen Strife a year before this, but it Known as a Victim and like that show in general was just kind of like, like it really like piqued my interest. And I kind of just fell into it from there. Like after I saw this band Shut Down is when I really kind of like heavily got into like, I want to be a hardcore kid. I think I want to be straight edge and like, all this crap. So yeah,
dude,
but
that's
incredible. That's my life story. I like, mine is all like the bullshit sad story stuff. That's my music life summed up. It's mainly my dad was just a big music fan. He got it into us somehow, and we just never stopped.
Do you like look back on some of these bands you saw and you're just like, look, I mean, at the time you had no idea, right? And now you look back and you're just like, I can't believe I saw them.
Always, and even when I hang out at shows now with kids, they always, oh, I can't believe you've seen this band, or I can't believe you saw that band. And I had to constantly like just remind everybody, that, fantastic. I got to see Avenged Sevenfold play to 15 people or whoever, there's bands that we're seeing now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Knock Loose, Tsunami, who's like another good one, like Suicide Silence is even a good one, that you can still see in small cap rooms if they surprise shows or whatever. But if it's like a freaking right tour promotion or whatever, you won't see them in that kind of atmosphere. Avenged Sevenfold just played the Observatory, and I seen that and I thought it was a joke. I thought it was a tribute band, because I was like, there's no freaking way Avenged Sevenfold would play below Death by Stereo, in 2024. And they did, and it just freaking blew my mind. I mean, that's, a once in like a, 20-year, thing. I'd be surprised if Avenged were to do that again. But, but I tell people now, there's bands doing it now that we're seeing at this moment that are going to be those bands, and just enjoy what you got. That's all I did. That's all me and my dad did. It's just, we just took the opportunity to go see shows, and these bands just blew up. And they are what they are now. And look at Big Ass Truck. They did one show, then overnight it's just like the freaking biggest thing out here right now. And they're playing Rockville already. There's bands that spend 10 freaking years trying to get on a show like that. Most of the bands that they got announced with, like Pain of Truth and all that, they've been bands for like 10 years. and they're, you know, getting that opportunity to finally play a thing like that, you know, and Big Ass Truck did it in a year.
That's incredible.
Got to make
Yeah.
I
songs
mean,
about vehicles, man. You
Yeah.
for real,
The internet,
right?
baby.
It sounds like we're promoting being gimmicky, so you know.
Yeah.
Find your
Yeah.
shtick. But so let's talk about then your music background, right? So how
Yeah.
did you get started? I know Bound in Blood was the first thing you did. Why
Mhm.
vocals as opposed to guitar or something like that? Like, how did this all come together?
Well, I have no hand coordination for drums, even though drums always seemed like the most fun thing to do. I used to set up like a couch with like drum. I used to get drumsticks from bands or whatever, and I would use those and like just bang on this chair, and I would be like, oh, I could do drums and whatever. But I didn't realize, you know, I need my feet. I need a pedal, you know, to kind of like teach my feet how to work, and I never had that. So I could air drum great, you know, but get me on drums, I can't kick, you know. So guitar, I I I'm not much of a writer. I could play guitar. I play Oasis songs for my kids every day on acoustic guitar, but that's about it. But vocals just seemed easy, you know. I could put on a CD and be like, I kind of want to sound like that, you know, and I would just sit in my room trying to figure that out. And you know, my vocal inspiration was always Keith Barney from Throwdown, and you know, I would just sit in my room with Beyond Repair on repeat, and I just figure out like, how do I get this grit? And I just figured it out, whatever, kind of loosely. I figured it out, and then with Bound in Blood, I was like their third singer, but they knew that I was like wanting to sing in a band or whatever, and so the guitar player at the time, he was like, "Oh, why don't you just do like a guest spot at a show of ours?" And so that's what I did. And then Scars of Tomorrow, who they played with at that show, the singer Mike Milford, who went on to, he did not Sharp Tone. I think he has something to do with Sharp Tone, but he has something to do with some kind of big. He worked with Attila for a while, whatever they were doing
Okay.
together. But Milford told the band, get rid of this singer. His name was Brad. He's like, you guys got to get rid of Brad and get Gabe in the band. And they were like, like, you're on Victory Records. Like, hell yeah, we'll listen to you. And they kicked out Brad and they got me in, you know, and it just kind of go from there. And when I joined Bound in Blood, they were a Christian band. And, well, they were kind of falling out of it. And, but when I joined, I told them, I was like, well, if I'm doing this, I want it to be a straight edge band. And so I forced them into being a straight edge band. And then we just kind of did our thing. And I think for a local band, we kind of like rose up pretty fast in the rankings as well. I would say within a year, we were headlining Showcase and, you know, to well enough numbers to where we could get good support slots as well for national tours like God Forbid and, you know, whoever else was coming through. Like we played All Shall Perish's first Southern California dates, headlining over them. And with the original singer Craig, but yeah, like, but we did well enough pretty quick. And again, that was all from like just, you know, CDs every weekend or flyers and stuff like that. And it was just so much easier to pass out CDs, and by next week you had 15 more people singing your songs. And
Yeah.
you know, can't do that now, dude. I've tried it, you know, multiple times. I tried it, and it just doesn't work, man. Like, yeah, I can't recreate that. But yeah, you know, and then we went on tour with Gone Without Trace, and then my drummer quit, and that kind of like made us all hit a wall. And when we realized we couldn't really do much else with Bound in Blood without that drummer, because he was kind of like the machine behind the band, we were just kind of like, fine, we won't tour, and we'll just stay home and do local shows. And then once that kind of got old, then we were like, you know, we'll just do one more show, and then we'll you know, mess with something else. And that's how Darasuum started, was just songs that my guitar player was writing that he wanted to kind of do more like Comeback Kid-ish. I don't know, Comeback Kid and Stick to Your Guns type style stuff. And yeah, and that's how that, or Figure 4 also. But yeah, that's how that whole thing started, but all from Bound in Blood. But Bound in Blood was a great learning experience, you know. It's like I mean, with Suicide Silence, you know, who I'm really tied to as well with their history as like their first manager, which I use that loosely. It was just me mainly
Mhm.
getting them all their first shows because Showcase wouldn't touch them. Like Joe from Showcase would be like, they're too metal for hardcore and they're too hardcore for metal. It's like they don't fit anywhere. And so Bound of Blood had to start. I had to start booking shows just so I could get Suicide Silence on shows. And it was only because me and Mitch we were childhood friends. We met each other through the Death Star dudes, hanging out at Redlands and stuff. Like we'd go to like church with them, like Bible studies and all this crap. And me and Mitch met doing that when we were like 14 and 15 or something like that, 15, 16. And then we were like, oh, like we live 1 mile apart, you know? And so we became close friends from that. And then when he got into Suicide Silence, then he was like, yo, like, I'm going to join this band, but like, we need help. Like, we can't get a show, you know, for the life of us. Can you help us? You know? So that's kind of how I became their first manager. And, you know, but I booked all like their first out of state shows, their first NorCal dates and all that stuff. But, you know, but I did all that only because Bound in Blood gave me that familiarity, you know, with like booking places or meeting people to make it, you know, easy to kind of like get Suicide Silence in on whatever, you know, Bound in Blood was on or whatever. So
That's incredible. And I want to come back to Darasuum. So this isn't switching to a Suicide Silence pod by any means, but I had heard you talking about you being friends with Mitch and stuff like that. And Suicide Silence, my intro into deathcore was really like, as Blood Runs Black was like the band that I would go to, right? Suicide Silence was like that band who I felt like was that step above as Blood Runs Black, where I'm like, ooh, I don't know if that's quite what I like, kind of thing. But the more I listened to Mitch and stuff like that, his vocal range was incredible. The passion, watching his videos, all of that stuff was absolutely insane. So, what are some like early memories of like Suicide Silence playing and you realizing these guys could actually be something because of like Mitch's personality, their guitar work, deathcore starting to take off? Like, what's some of that early stuff?
So I didn't see Mitch. I knew people who wanted to be kind of like friends with me to get close with Mitch. Mitch had this aura about him, you know, like you looked at him and you could be like, this guy looks freaking cool. I mean, this dude had like his cheeks pierced, you know, he had the Prince Albert for a minute, and you know, he was 16 with like a giant drug-free tattoo on his shin, you know. I mean, he was just like he had good image, you know, everything. He could spike his hair, he could buzz it all off, and he just always looked good. He wasn't to me like the dude. Eric Gregson, who played bass in Cast in Stone and then guitar later in Sleeping Giant and Death Star as well, he was a dude I thought was like, he was my Mitch, you know.
Yeah.
I like to think Mitch got his image from Eric. If you look at Eric and you look at Mitch side by side, you will see the similarities in both of them. But Mitch had the voice, and Mitch always had the voice. He played in a band called his very first band was called Breakaway, and I saw them at a skating rink down the street from Mitch's house, like maybe 2 blocks. He lives in an area in Corona called Home Gardens, and there was a skating rink there in that area that he played at, and there was a good amount of kids there in skates. And when they started, it was just like a freaking mosh fest, and all these kids just start falling all over the place on their skates. You know, they didn't expect moshing to happen. But Mitch, you know, that was my first time seeing him perform. And I remember just thinking like then, like, damn, like this guy can scream. Because I spent, you know, all these years screaming in my room trying to sound like Throwdown. And Mitch is just like, you know, coming out with those screams or whatever. But yeah, then he did Dying Dreams. And I thought musically they were okay. I didn't really think much of them. I feel like they were kind of like very tame metalcore. I think they were trying to do more like a Himsa type thing. But Suicide Silence weren't even on my radar, even though I was friends with them. I used to talk to the original singer Tanner a lot on AOL Instant Messenger, AIM.
Okay.
And we would talk all the time, you know, like, oh, do you do vocal warm-ups? Or, you know, he would 20 question me about like trying to get shows and stuff too. And uh yeah, but when Mitch got into Suicide, he was supposed to be a backup singer, and Tanner
Oh,
only want
interesting.
yeah, so Tanner only wanted him to do the highs because Tanner couldn't do highs. But and I forget what happened, dude. It's like something where my memory, and I keep asking. I mean, Garza will hang out still, and I always bring it up. Like, when did Mitch take over? My memory is they were supposed to do a show at this skating rink by my house, called like Sound Rink or Skate Rink 2000, something like that. I don't know. Tanner didn't show up. And so we did this thing called a douchebag party or whatever, where it's just all our friends just grabbed instruments. And me and Mitch were on vocals. Garza was on drums, our friend Pat on guitar. And we just basically wrote songs on the spot for 20 minutes or whatever. And that was Suicide Silence, essentially playing their show. And that was how I remember Mitch getting into Suicide Silence. But yeah, he always had that voice, and I never understood. I had to go home and try to like figure that out. Like, how do you get this voice, But I think, I guess to answer the original question, it was when he went on a whole freaking like 2 months. He would come to my house and be like, "Oh man, we're working on this song." Like, mind you, I was their manager, right? And he was keeping this whole thing a secret. And he's like, "We're working on this song, man. Like, it's gonna blow your minds. It's like the heaviest thing." And he's just going on and on and on. And he'd always come to my house for like a month about it. And they did a show. I can't remember what show it was. I want to say it was a Moshua Fest, but I could be wrong about that. It's all a blur. But when they first debuted Bludgeon to Death, and he does that freaking line, "Doctors won't be able to recognize your fucking face," whatever. I was like sitting on stage, and it's just like, just chills up my spine. Just, he screams it, goes into that freaking down tune, dun, the down tempo, dun, dun. And I was just like, even now when I think about it, like, I still get excited, It's just, that's when I realized, like, this is something different. It made me go home and ask my dad, like, what was a band that you felt like changed metal? He was like, "Oh, Pantera, Cowboys from Hell," and I'm just like, crazy, because for me it was Suicide Silence. But then yeah, like Jaw for a Cowboy, so it's like, who knows when deathcore started? All I knew was that when I was at all those early meetings at Century Media with Suicide, we were talking, about like promotion for like the cleansing and all this crap, and a rollout plan. And it was just like, I would send those dudes, whatever Hot Topic had for Joffrey Cowboy. Metal Blade was doing all these like decal stickers on the windows, and I'd send him, the dude at the time, Joe Clark, I forget his name, but I would send him pictures and be like, "Yo, this is what we need this kind of promotion." And yeah, very exciting to be a part of that whole thing, being at those dinners and stuff like that, with Century Media, and amazing time.
It's crazy.
That's wild. That's wild. The Cleansing is, in my opinion, the go-to deathcore album of all time.
Mm-hmm.
It
Yeah.
is absolutely incredible, especially like given Mitch passing away and everything like that. I still go back and I watch like his tribute show and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
It is just, it's wild. It's wild how
Yeah.
good those songs are, how much that band was loved, is loved, everything about it. So
yeah, and it's to me, it's like, I try to stay away from videos, and like even like thinking about it now, like it kind of like chokes me up a little thinking about it. But yeah, I try to stay away from like videos of him alive. Like, it just it's too weird at this point. But yeah, I think, the Cleansing for sure. I remember I would just 20 question him. We're on tour Sepultura, in a bus with Sworn Enemy we shared. And I remember specifically being in South Dakota, and him and I were just listening to one of the mixes for the Cleansing. And we're listening to like a Girl of Glass. And he's like just going through it and like just telling me like, "Oh yeah, like, I was thinking about my grandma writing this," or, he's just like telling me stories, like what led to these songs, and, his writing process and stuff like that. And, even with like, with Darasuum now, it's like I carry a lot of those discussions, of what he was trying to go for, as far as like, he wanted every songs to be like anthems and stuff. And like you know, when you listen like Wake Up, you know, Wake Up, the song Wake Up. It's just wake up, you know, like it always comes back around. And, you know, those early conversations during the cleansing, he was already telling me, you know, like, I'm just going to try to make everything an anthem, you know? And so when Eddie joined the band, him and I went out to eat. We went out to sushi and he was asking me like, yo, I want to go out to eat with you and pick your brain, because I figured you would know kind of what Mitch would expect, you know? And so we talked and I just told him the same thing. Like, Mitch wanted anthems. He just wanted things to come back. If they were to play it the first time and they did the chorus part or whatever, when it comes back around, the kids already knew what to say, you know, and that's what Mitch was always going for. So like when you listen like Darasuum, like Smash Your Leaders Ways or something, you know, it's like that's basically like my take on like maybe how Mitch would have done it.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Well, back to Darasuum now.
Yeah,
I appreciate that, dude. Like, I could say we could have you here for 3 hours, man. Like, you have so much history and all that stuff, but we won't keep you that long. So
you're good.
Back to Darasuum. When we started this and we were talking about right off the get-go, I said, well, you just like, I have 4 questions that you've already started diving into on Thriving in the Divide and into the new album and stuff like that. One of my questions is, what is your guys' process in writing? Do you guys go in with the idea and the structure of how you want the album to sound? Or is it something that starts just to develop organically? Like you said, you're already kind of rearranging some breakdowns, rearranging some of the sound and stuff like that. So do you like skeleton it and then build it out? Or like, what is that process?
So this time around, it started with my vision. So I mean, I'm the only like original member of the band. The Darasuum realistically is a 2-man band. It was me and my Bound of Blood guitar player. It was just him and I. But to promote the songs, we needed a band. So we just picked, you know, some friends up, and but I'm the only person that's stuck around the whole entire time, other than my drummer now, who's the second, you know, longest member. But this time for the full length, it started with more of like my vision. All I wanted was relentless is like my word. And it's funny because I think when you did the your guys' podcast, talking about the Thriving EP, I think it was Kyle that dropped relentless, and my dudes were like, no, like he said it. Gabe is gonna fucking come at us with that. He's not gonna let it go. So we had band practice the other night, and it's the first thing they brought up. They're like, how happy were you that they said relentless? Because that's all I want, is just for it to be relentless. Don't give the listener room to breathe or think. Just get in their ears and never fucking leave it.
Yeah.
And so going into the full length, it was the same thing. You know, I was like, the first song, I want it to be just a minute and a half. Second song, maybe a minute, no longer than 2 minutes. You know, just start it off just as quick as possible so the listener knows what they're in for. And so everything since then, it's just kind of been like, okay, well, Gabe wants a relentless and fast and all this crap. And, you know, it's kind of hard trying to like meet. And it was hard in the beginning to meet in the middle, because my dude, my drummer anyway, who's become kind of like the more primary songwriter now, he's like an actual musician. You know, he writes songs for like soap operas and stuff like that. And so like his whole take on stuff is just a little bit different than like how I hear. And so he's like, no, well, like it makes sense like this, because like in the scale, it goes from here to here, like this is how he's, you know, and I'm just like, I don't hear it like that. Like all I hear is this into like this heavy freaking part. And like, all I want is to hear what I'm hearing in my head. And, but you know, he tries to make sense of it. But, yeah, this whole thing really, it started off with more, this time was through my vision of just like, I need it to be fast. You know, I'm a big hardcore punk fan, and, all I wanted was just like challenge myself vocally. You know, if I'm dying on stage, then like I'll have to talk the words if I have to, you know. But you know, as far as like albums go, it's just like I just need it to be like so in your face that the listener just kind of like, holy crap, like they mean business, you know, like they're really coming to like fuck me up. And but yeah, my this time around it's been I think we only wrote 2 of these songs as a band, which was the song Everyone But Me was a song we wrote as a band, and this other song Trail of Disappointment, which we play live. You can see it on YouTube, but we haven't recorded it yet. But those are the only 2 songs I think that we wrote as a band. Everything else has been my drummer and partially one of my other guitar players. Kind of my guitar player Dylan would write a riff, and my drummer Chris would figure out how to like piece it together, and then they'll present it to me, and then it kind of goes from there, like whether I tear it all apart or figure it out. Which, like I'm terrible at that. Like I can't be at the writing process anymore because I just tear everything apart. But yeah, so it's mainly just like that. Like my drummer will just record everything, present it to me, and then we'll work from there. But they've learned that it just has to be kind of like brought to me as like one piece of product, and then we could go from there and like figure it all out.
Sick.
That's awesome.
But,
yeah. And I am super happy to hear that it's going to be relentless, because we need. Look, I've had my fill of beatdown. I'm tired of that. Like, let's just give me some fast, just in your face hardcore again. All right, like I'm ready for it.
Yeah, we I was just talking to my friend Nathan last night, who plays in the band 97 Minutes, who are a pretty groovy beatdown band. And even he was telling me, he's like, yeah, like we want to like step away a little bit, step out of just that, like we want to bring in more elements into our music now. And like, whereas like with Darasuum is like, we're trying to implement a little bit more, like the foundation always has to be fast. I'm my blueprint is like Hatebreed, Hatebreed, Figure 4, like those are like my blueprint bands. And which is why, like, if you listen to, like Seasonal Friends, there's just a lot of overlapping vocals, and it's because like Figure 4 just always does it. Mm-hmm. But everything's always fast. It just has to be fast, and we can figure out a way to break it down, if we can come out of fast into heavy. But that's been like the more tricky part, because my band want to implement more of the beatdown elements to keep up with everybody else, whereas to me, I'm not concerned with keeping up. I'm concerned with what's going to sound good in 10 years.
Right.
It's like, again, like Bound in Blood, like the very first full length, garbage, at the time in 2002, fantastic. You knew you could go to a Bound in Blood show and it's just going to be breakdown. It was a guaranteed good time show. And 10 years later, I can't even stand it. No one a part of the band at that recording can listen to that and be like, yeah, this is sick. It's like we don't like it at all. We don't think it aged well. Vocal is terrible too, because it wasn't mixed or mastered or anything. It was just, go in, record, release. But yeah, so now my whole thing is I'm not worried. I'm not concerned about what's cool right now. If I want to be, we tried it in the beginning, when For the Fallen Dreams and Stick to Your Guns, Comeback Kid were all at their prime. Stick to Your Guns doing Diamond, and Comeback Kid doing broadcasting and whatever. We tried doing the melodic twists, here and there, and listening back all the songs now, it's like, get it out of here. Like, like it didn't do good, like on recording, it sounds great. Place Called Home, fun song, never hit live. We take it live, nobody cared. The songs that people cared about were like Go Destroy Your Life and Seasonal Friends, or Bite Back, like the more like faster stuff that we had. So that's when Daniel quit the band, it was just like, moving from here on out, we're going just a straight hardcore sound. I want just fast hardcore. Like, I'm not concerned with trying to sound like anybody else. I just want to know that I'm happy with it, and in 10 years, it's going to sound just as good. And Angry Brigade was that. Angry Brigade songs were 8 years old by the time we released it. And then everybody was like, oh, you guys been listening to a lot of Tear. I'm like, no, dude. Like, we had these songs for the last 8 years. We just took a break, because we were burnt out, and like, this is it now, So to me, it only solidified that the songs, not, I won't say like timeless or whatever, but they held up. 8 years later, nearly 10 years later, they held up, and people liked them then. They got us off the ground now. And then when Thriving, like Trevor said last week on your guys' podcast, with Thriving, it solidified the direction we wanted to go, just fast and heavy.
So, dude, you nailed it. You nailed it, right? Like, straight up, Thriving is one of my favorite releases of this year. Like, someone asked us the other day, they were like, hey, what are a couple of like your album of the year contenders and stuff like that? And I was like, if you haven't, go listen to Darasuum. Like, that Thriving on the Divide, specifically the song Thriving on the Divide. It's just like, you talked about sitting on the edge of the stage and listening to Bludgeon to Death with Suicide Silence. Yeah. I get that feeling listening to Thriving on the Divide. Like, it's such just a chills running down my spine and stuff. So it's absolutely fantastic.
And we haven't played that song live yet. It's
just, for real?
It's such a, and we wanted to bring it out for the No Innocent Victim shows, but because we have other things happening that are kind of keeping us from learning it as a unit right now. But it's just so fast, it's coming out of, I don't know. It's just a constant la, 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 la. And I remember when the first round of vocals for that was so dumbed down, because I felt the Angry Brigade was very wordy. It was just like, again, like, it's just so much going on, and there's no like room for me to even breathe, And so when we're writing the new stuff, I was trying to like calm it down a little bit, and my drummer, of course, was just like, nah, man, this calls for wordy, dude. Like, you need to pick it up. And man, I like sat like the next 2 days trying to figure out like, how the hell can I get this more wordy, and trying to like figure it all out. And then, but the finished product, I was so happy with it, like, I'm not 100% sold on the payoff breakdown at the very end, but I feel like I'll grow into it. I'll grow to like it, but it was just because we know that it was just, we were recording the next day for those songs, and we really had to like do something good enough that we could live with. And that was it, and I mean, I listened to it and I enjoy it, but it's like, I in 10 years, I'll be like, we could have done it better. We could have done that one breakdown better, It's just the breakdown. Everything else, I feel like, is like on point. I think the vocal structure is great. The concept of it's great.
I will fight you, because that breakdown is fantastic.
and the band loves it too, yeah.
Yeah, this is the kind of stuff, though, that, like, again, we grew up with, right? Being able to have that, what you talked about, that anthem, that screaming along part where we could all go up and then literally just turn around and whoever's in the way better move. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is what that song is for me. So, like, I love the wordiness, how fast it is, how aggressive it is. Yeah. And that slowed down breakdown, dude. I said it in the podcast, man. Like, it's incredible. Like, we don't have to keep
appreciate that. yeah, and I appreciate that. Again, and for you to say that, like, it made. I have a friend, Justin, who does a clothing brand called Still Hardcore. I saw him last night, and he goes, "Hey, that podcast, what did I tell you, right? Thriving on Divide is the song, right?" And I'm just like, God, because he was telling me for the longest time, when we first released it, I gave him a copy of the CD, and he was just like, dude, that song's incredible. Like, holy crap, dude. Like, you guys nailed it with that one. And, I'm like coming out the same thing of like, oh man, like, it wasn't really like 100% thought out. Like, we had to hurry up and get it done, but to him too, he feels it. You echo the exact same feeling.
That's awesome. Some of that just like off the cuff organic stuff is the stuff that just hits the best, though. You know what I mean? It's just like, it's like, we need something that's good, and we know it's good. It might not be exactly how we wanted it, but it'll get the job done, and we all love it. You know what I mean? So
and and we haven't tested it yet. Like, we only know what it was like. We know what the studio product is like. We don't know what the live reaction is or how it will be. My whole thing has always been seasonal friends. Like, if I could just get 10 people to yell seasonal friends winning that before that breakdown, I would freaking just die on my hill. Like, that's that's my whole thing is like why can't I get people to sing Seasonal Friends? I have people that sing along to like the Angry Brigade or Smash Your Loose Ways, but like people can't say 2 words, together, and it's like, and then I feel like Seasonal Friends to me is like the song. Like if I could like write 12 Seasonal Friends, I would do that. I feel like that really Seasonal Friends is the song that really set us up for like, it could have set us up for better success had we stayed active all these years. But I don't know. That to me is my favorite song of the band, and it's the first song we ever wrote. So
Sick.
Yeah.
Well, dude, seriously, we do appreciate your time. I've got one more question for you, but Kyle, do you have anything else?
No, I mean, these interviews are my favorite because like what's funny is the times that we've done this, people have come and been like, man, I talked a lot, didn't I? And we're just like, no, dude, it was perfect. Like Trevor said, I could sit here and just listen to like your stories and your stuff about your band all day long. So like,
and I'm a talker too. Like I enjoy talking. I love meeting people. I'm an introvert, naturally I'm an introvert, but we talk about music or you catch me at a show. Like I just want to talk. Like I love the like-mindedness of, people and whatever, we could relate on something. We just go on and on about it.
Absolutely.
Isn't that so crazy? I think we're the same way because like we'll sit here and we'll talk for, like I said, hours to people about music and stuff like that. And we'll get to the end and we'll be like, so sports, huh? Like the conversation just dies, like
yeah, no sports for me, man. Like I watch like UFC and that's it. Like I don't watch football, baseball. Like don't even come at me with that because I'm just like I mess with people. I go like, oh, like is Brett Favre still a quarterback, or does Will Clark still play for the Giants? Like Nolan Ryan, right? Like Hideo Nomo, like I'll bring up all these like 90s people, because I don't follow sports, man. Like that's not my thing. I could give a crap about sports. I love music. I'm a music fanatic.
Oh, I think we're kind of the same way. So, okay, my last question that I have for you is: I listened to the Walking Blind podcast with you. They keep referring to you as the archivist. So, why is it important for this to be taking place today in terms of like on social media and stuff like that? Because you run a page where you put out old band flyers, things along those lines. Why do you feel like it's important to make sure that we like keep some of this stuff happening and be able to like look back on it?
I think it's the culture. Yeah, I think I'm a punk fan, first. I got through hardcore the long way. I came from, other than Headbangers Ball and stuff. But like I started with punk into ska into hardcore. I had to sift through all this crap, but flyers and artwork and all that stuff, like it's, to me, that's always been the major part of the culture. Zines, political zines or animal rights zines, or you collected it. I remember like getting like zines for like Earth, or pamphlets for Earth First and all that stuff, in the 90s. It's just it's, to me, it's part of the culture, and there's nothing that bums me out more than when I go to a show and try to hand someone a flyer and they're just like, no, I'm good, because they're not invested into the culture. They're invested in what's cool right now, what's trendy, like, and that's not me, It's like I didn't get into this to be the biggest band or the most known person or, the coolest guy in the freaking world or whatever the crap. I just love it. And it bums me out when people kind of like lose, they don't grasp on to that part of the culture of like collecting, and I don't know, and like even like just not archiving or whatever, like I feel like it takes it's a lot of work to archive. Like I mean, even for me, like that page is slowed down so much because I can only dig through so much crap. I have 3 kids, but to me it's just part of the culture of flyers and discovering bands, and I don't know,
Yeah.
it's easy way to discover, you know, I don't know.
I think at the end of the day, like, this is an art form, you know, and I think that some of the issues that, you know, any type of art, like I think all art is kind of battling with the same thing as like the commercialization of stuff, the lack of like identity and culture in these scenes, not just music, but any kind of art, you know? So I think archiving things and having this historical record of, you know, your like culture, like where it comes from, like what it means, you know, why is